from that Republican as well. The Democrats have moved radically to the left so far so that the incivility of the Democratic Party, as I said yesterday, I think that there are a couple of people in the Democratic Party who are trying to hold back the tide. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they've been saying that incivility, mob action, this stuff is inappropriate for Democrats to pursue. They're going to hit the dustbin of history. Those people are not loved by their base. Their base is not into it. Their base is Occupy Wall Street. Their base is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez slamming the desk and suggesting that ICE is running black sites. That is their base right now. And you can see this pretty clearly. Linda Sarsour, for example, she goes after Chuck Schumer, right? Linda Sarsour, who has in the past supported terrorists. Linda Sarsour says that civility is wrong and Chuck Schumer is the problem.
Martin Luther King warned us about people like Chuck Schumer. He said it wasn't the Ku Klux Klan and the white citizen counselors who are the obstacles towards justice. It was the people calling for, quote, civility, and people that were telling us when to protest, at what time, and how to protest.
Okay, so MLK, according to Linda Sarsour, would oppose civility. Okay, his protests were not uncivil. His protests were protests. There's a difference between a protest and civil disobedience and you going into a restaurant and shouting at people until they leave and then following them to another restaurant and then shouting at them until they leave. But the hardcore left base really believes this stuff. They really do, right? MSNBC's Chris Hayes, who is not unrepresentative of the base, he says it's actually important to harass public officials.
In a real deep sense, like hectoring, yelling at public officials. I mean, I covered all the Tea Party town halls of 2009. That was a festival of yelling at public officials. And in the same way, that's actually an important right to preserve.
Okay, that's not true. Okay, that just isn't true. I went to tea parties in 2009, 2010. It was generally protests that were held at parks. If they went to places with public officials, they were standing outside like the Capitol building, and they were yelling as public officials came down steps. They weren't going into restaurants and yelling at people. The conflation of those two things is astonishing, but it shows you that the Democratic Party has embraced its id. They really have embraced their id. This is why Sarah Huckabee Sanders now requires Secret Service protection. There are a bunch of members of the Trump administration who now need Secret Service protection, specifically because of the insanity of the left in all of this. Here's some tape from yesterday that was making the rounds. Elaine Chao, who is the wife of Mitch McConnell, she is coming out of some sort of dinner party at a private residence, and she starts being harassed by a bunch of protesters who decide that they're going to harass her. Again, if this were a bunch of Republican men harassing Nancy Pelosi, all we would hear about is toxic masculinity for 3 weeks. But it's